You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't trip over that stuff. You know, the only thing I really trip over when it comes to that is like when you paint yourself to look like a different, you know what I'm saying, a different demographic and everything. And even then, it's really about what is the message of it, because you could be doing blackface to mock, like in Tropic Thunder, you know what I'm saying? You could be doing it as a way of
that shit was layered as fuck.
It was layered as fuck. And you know, for people who never saw Tropic Thunder, I would just encourage you to go see it again. But basically, the joke is there is a actor who is doing a very what's that kind of acting when you get really deep into the shit? Method acting that is essentially blackface, but in doing that, he's actually mocking the fact that he's doing blackface. But at the same time, it's Robert Downey Jr., who's a great fucking actor. So even when he's playing black, you're like, oh, that's actually a black guy. So it's like, so if you didn't know who he was, if this is your first time seeing this shit, you'd be like, whoa, this black dude just ripped off his fucking face towards the end of the movie and has white makeup on. It's like, no, it's the opposite.
My favorite part is when he's talking to the farmers and he has to put on makeup on his black face and he's speaking a different language, but still has the same kind of
applications.
Yeah, he's still playing the black guy doing a different language, and I'm like, oh my god,
yeah,
that movie is straight satire.
Oh my god, yeah.
If you're offended by anything in that movie, it's because that's the point.
Right, it's right, exactly. If you're offended, it's because you don't understand good fucking, you know, it's because it's poe'slaw. You didn't get the satire. You know,
yeah.
you didn't get what was really supposed to be mocked at. You just took it like, oh, this actor in the film is doing blackface and everything. It's like, no, that's just the surface level. Like there's quite a bit more going on here, you know. And again, like Robert Downey Jr. to me is one of the best fucking actors, if for nothing else, that role alone. Because there's very few people I can think of any background who could pull off some shit like that.
That was what I remember. Prior to that movie, I was not the biggest fan of Ben Stiller.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went and made that movie, and I'm like, well, shit, I was wrong.
I had enjoyed Ben Stiller. I just didn't know he could go that deep, so to speak, with the layering of the comedy and whatnot. You know, because of course you had the other, his other stuff was more, about very slapstick humor or gross out humor, and it was rewarding in its own way, but it was kind of in one ear and out the other. But Tropic Thunder is something that like continues to be brought up, for examples of discussing these very issues, for good reason. It's a classic, and it did something that a lot of films, a lot of art didn't do before and hasn't been able to accomplish since,
And not accomplish so thoroughly and so well done, so fine-tuned.
Oh, yeah.
Even Tom Cruise as Les Grossman, yeah. I'm just like, oh my god.
Because Tom Cruise, for all the weird shit and everything, it's like, for the most part, he's always come off as very weird with the Scientology and everything, but he's always come off as a pretty decent guy. Otherwise, like he's always seems to come off as like an okay person, and he's always obviously a great actor. So that's why we all revere him and everything for nothing else. But yeah. And it always annoys me when people say shit like, "Oh, Tropic Thunder couldn't be made again." Blah blah blah. It's like, first of all, it doesn't need to be made again. Some ground doesn't need to be tread over again. It's like, hey, they did that shit and they made very strong points and whatnot. So your objective shouldn't be to just repeat the shit. It should be to try to make a different fucking point. Give just as rich an experience for people that leads to a different conclusion and whatnot. It's like, why do we need some people?
Blazing Saddles is good. Blazing Saddles, a lot of people will say that can't be made again. And I'm like, good.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I don't want to.
we're past that shit. We're past that shit. And one of the things that they'll bring up is the fact that they bring up one of the big major scenes, in which the word nigger is being used, right? And they'll be like, what? First of all, if you just want to hear the word, if you just want to hear that shit, just listen to Tarantino.
Yeah.
Which I go back and forth with how comfortable I am with hearing him say that shit. But it's like, first of all, you don't need to go very far just to hear that word, but also the whole point, again, in the film, it's poe'slaw again. Motherfucker's not realizing that he's making fun of people who think like that. He's making fun of people who just look at black people And that's the first term that comes to their head, because that black guy was one of the only redeeming characters, the only one with half a fucking brain throughout the whole story. You know what I'm saying? So like, and it's just like, you know, people grasp onto the parts that they want to. It's like they don't care about the part that certain characters and demographics are being elevated and everything. They just care about I want the slurs, I want the bad words, I want the, you know what I'm saying, I want the derogatory shit and everything. And it's like look, there's never going to be any shortage of that shit, but it's like, can you at least not update it and finesse it? There were still, I don't know if you know Cum Town, the podcast Cum Town.
Nope.
But basically,
I'll make a recommendation.
Yeah, it's not a mainstream podcast, but it's fairly popular in certain, you know, demographics and whatnot, because partly of what they do is that they still kind of hold on to the edginess. Now it's a lot more rich and they go a lot deeper into it and beyond just using slurs, but slurs do come up, but it's usually facilitating a deeper bit or, you know, more story. And, you know, sometimes it's going to rub you the wrong way and whatnot. And sometimes the bits don't always pay off, but it's like, at least he's trying to finesse, at least it's three guys. At least they're trying to finesse it and update it and make it something that's not so archaic. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, yeah, it's like you can still do this stuff. Just don't expect it to be represented in the mainstream. But these motherfuckers still make $250,000 a year, you know, doing this podcast. That you can't even say in, you know what I'm saying, in mainstream outlets or whatnot. You can't even repeat the name Cum Town. You know what I'm saying? But they're making more money. They get more streams and more downloads and shit than a lot of these mainstream figures. So there's no shortage of an audience of people who want to, you know what I'm saying, enjoy that shit. It's just updated. And a lot of motherfuckers, they're just very resistant to, no, I just want to hold on to the way we used to do shit. And it's just like, okay, well, just die off then. I don't give a fuck. Yeah. Adapt with the times. I've had to change.
If you don't adapt, if you don't evolve, you're gonna die out.
Right. So we've all had to do that. I've had to change the way I talk. I've had to change the, you know, shit. But ultimately, it's better because it's really just making me. It's not just saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like, if you're gonna do it, step your game up. And nobody should be offended. And really, nobody should be offended by that. Step your game up. It's like, okay, I'll step my shit up.
I remember I was talking to some conservative online. I forget where we were. I think it was either Twitter or on Instagram, but we were commenting and we were having an argument. And he was like, "Oh man, illegal immigrants are stealing the jobs." And I was like, "Nope, that's impossible. No one stole your job. What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, every time I apply for a job, it says, am I bilingual?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That they want people who speak Spanish." I was like, "Then learn Spanish." Get smarter. I don't know what to tell you.
Step your game up. Make yourself more competitive. You know what I'm saying? It's so funny, too, because these are the same people that will say that they don't want handouts and they don't, you know, you know what I'm saying, giving people more benefits and shit. That's socialism and everything. But what you're basically asking for is them to lower the bar of expectations and give you a participation trophy, you know what I'm saying, for just coming I just want to come as I am and everything. I don't want to have to compete with these people who are bringing other skills and other perspectives that have their own languages. Right, they know 5 languages and bring their own value. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to fucking accept that. Like, I only speak English. I wish I would have taken my lessons in Spanish and Portuguese more seriously. And there's still time to do that. But it's like, I also understand that, like, when I see these opportunities, like you said, come through where it's like, oh, we need somebody who's fluent in these other languages and shit. It's like shit. It's like, hey, I got outcompeted. I got outbid.
That's on me.
That's on, at a certain point, it's like, hey, it's on me. And I can change this shit. You know what I'm saying, when I feel like I really want to. I just happen to be very spoiled by the fact that I belong to a global superpower who's been able to inflict their will and their language and shit, you know what I'm saying, around the globe.
I've been in some Zoom meetings with folks in Europe, and they're all speaking English, and I'm like, yep.
Got it. Still got it.
Like there was someone in France, Germany, Holland, and they're all speaking English. I'm like, must be nice.
And really, we shouldn't even say that it's us because, like, yeah, we have American English, but it's the Yankee English. But it's like England, that little fucking island, that little fucking island in the middle, you know what I'm saying, in the North Atlantic or whatever. Somehow they conquered the fucking world. It was super improbable, but hey, they fucking did it, and now we speak the language that they wanted us to speak.